Number 12. Starting off our list is the 1973 Pontiac LeMans GTO 455, a model born during the GTO's limp into retirement. It was one of the victims of a worldwide gas crisis and the new power rating requirements that made horsepower and torque ratings practically meaningless to the consumer. Even the name that had once made teenagers starry-eyed had become a mere addendum to the LeMans family car. The GTO package was available on a couple of LeMans models, with the base GTO Pontiac 400 V8 using an 8.0 compression ratio to make 230 horsepower and 325 pound-feet. There were a couple of cars fitted with the 310 horsepower Super Duty 455 Large Journal V8, but they were used for fleet and media testing and never went into mass production, leaving the 250 horsepower 455 as the top GTO motivator. Number 11. As with most powerful cars, some owners always wanted more. The iconic Pontiac Firebird Trans Am was no exception. As the muscle car era began to fade, several tuners stepped in to make a more powerful Trans Am. Some built only a few cars without recording production numbers. Others, like Arizona-based DKM, began with 26 conversions in 1977, around 200 in 1978, and roughly 100 more in 1979, totaling 325 cars. That, along with its awesome name, earns it a spot on the list of rarest 1970s Pontiac muscle cars. The macho Trans Am started with the underpowered 185 horsepower small journal Pontiac 400 V8, and added 50 more horsepower by modifying the intake manifold and reworking the distributor curve and 4-barrel carb. One of the more radical upgrades came in 1978 when a turbocharger was added, boosting output by another 100 horsepower. Number 10. When it comes to rarity, the 1972 Pontiac GTO Post Coupe ranks high. Out of 5,807 GTOs built that year, only 134 were post coupes, making it rare no matter the engine or transmission option. Add in the rising corporate average fuel economy requirements from the federal government, and all American V8s were heavily detuned to meet new standards. This signaled the near end of the muscle car era. Pontiac tried to give the classic GTO body one final swan song with a high-output version of the big block 455 engine. Unsurprisingly, buyers opted for the high-output version, which offered an instant bump of 50 horsepower, up to 300 horsepower, compared to the standard 455's 250 horsepower. Still, that was far lower than the 370 horsepower output the GTO achieved in 1970. Number 9. The idea behind the GT37 started with the desire to offer a more affordable alternative to the GTO, as buyers weren't quite ready to spend big money. The business model was to build it on a LeMans platform and allow customers to pay extra for options, like more power. The T37 came standard with a 250 horsepower inline-six, but for those willing to pay for a bigger V8, the GT37 was available. Buyers could choose from 3 V8 engines, including the high-output LS5 455 cubic inch engine, which made 335 horsepower. Essentially, it was a stripped-down muscle car that few people paid attention to. Only 54 high-output LS5 models were ever built. Number 8. By 1973, demand for muscle cars had begun to fade, as gas shortages and growing concerns over air pollution forced the government to impose restrictions and tax excessive energy consumption. Engine numbers no longer looked impressive, as ratings were now based on usable output rather than the gross ratings used just 2 years earlier. Those who closely followed the Pontiac Firebird lineup knew that while the Trans Am may have taken all the glory, perhaps due to its race-inspired name, the true Firebird of the 1970s was the formula. These legendary Formula Firebirds could be equipped with the same top-tier V8 engines as the Trans Am, but without the added weight of plastic body cladding and styling extras. Number 7. The 1977 Pontiac Can-Am was one of the last two-door, three-box muscle cars, and the initial plan had actually been to revive the GTO brand that had faded away by 1974. That idea was scrapped, and designers instead came up with the Can-Am name to continue Pontiac's racing-themed naming tradition: Grand Prix, LeMans, Trans Am. Although a total of 1,377 units were produced, only 42 are reported to have been sold with the L80-403 engine, externally identified by the 6.6-liter decal on the hood. The 1977 Can-Am was powered by either a Pontiac 400 cubic-inch small journal V8 for 49 states, or a 403 cubic-inch four-barrel Oldsmobile engine for California, both paired with the turbo hydromatic transmission. The 403 cubic-inch version produced 185 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque. Number 6. By 1970, the muscle car era had reached its peak, and Pontiac was one of the biggest automotive brands of the time. This car checked every box: GTO, Judge, Ram Air, convertible. Any combination of those terms could instantly make for a classic collectible that modern buyers could profit from. Now consider the fact that only 17 units were ever built, and only 7 with automatic transmissions, making this model even more exclusive. Pontiac didn't take advantage of GM's removal of the 400 cubic inches engine size cap for this GTO. Instead, they chose the 6.5-liter V8 and refined the characteristics of the Ram Air package. The Ram Air 4 V8 pushed output to 370 horsepower and an impressive 445 pound-feet of torque. Number 5. If you missed out on the Ram Air version of the 1970 GTO Judge convertible, you still had a shot in 1971. Sort of. The 1971 Pontiac GTO Judge convertible is one of the rarest cars on the planet, with just 17 units built out of the 357 total GTOs sold that year with the Judge package. The 1971 GTO Judge came standard with a high-output 455 cubic inches V8 engine, rated at 335 horsepower and 480 pound-feet of torque, in what would be the final year of production. The engine was an option in the Judge during the 1970s, making these models some of the rarest Pontiac muscle cars of the decade. Number 4. Buyers realized they could spend significantly less on the Pontiac GT37 than on a GTO, and most of them likely opted for the more powerful LS5 engine, resulting in fewer GT37s equipped with the L75 engine. However, the low production numbers haven't necessarily translated into higher values today. The difference between the GT37 L75 and GT37 LS5 lies in the engine components. The L75 model used a 4-barrel carburetor and number 66 cylinder heads to produce 325 horsepower and 455 pound-foot of torque, whereas the high-output LS5 used number 197 heads to push output to 335 horsepower and 480 pound-foot, according to Hemmings. Some enthusiasts even claim the real output was closer to 360 horsepower. Number 3. The Judge package for the Pontiac GTO convertible was originally intended to be discontinued after 1969. But as the new decade began, muscle cars gained momentum, and the 1970 GTO Judge with the high-output 455 engine became the stuff of dreams for many enthusiasts. Only 14 units were produced, adding to its desirability. The large displacement Pontiac V8 was offered in response to GM lifting the 400 cubic inches engine restriction on its intermediate-sized cars. While it was available for the GTO, very few buyers of the Judge opted for it. That's likely because the 400 cubic inches V8, especially in Ram Air 3 and 4 configurations, was cheaper and produced similar or greater horsepower. Number 2. The early 1970s brought hope for muscle cars, but within just a few years that hope gave way to despair as fuel became prohibitively expensive and environmental concerns took center stage. In 1970, all the boxes were checked for a dream car: GTO, Judge, high-output 455 V8, and convertible. 17 GTO Judges were produced with the high-output Pontiac 455 V8 in 1970, but only 3 of them were convertibles, according to Pontiac and Hemmings. That makes this one of the rarest Pontiac muscle cars of the 1970s. Number 1. Topping our list is an especially standout, truly one-of-a-kind vehicle, the 1977 Pontiac Firebird Type K. The Type K only made it to the prototype phase, and while it wasn't truly one-of-a-kind originally, only 2 were ever built, one in yellow with a beige interior, and the sole surviving example finished in silver with a deep red interior. Most notably, the Type K featured a wagon-style rear end, with the K standing for camtail, referring to cars with flat rear ends. It also had a unique gullwing-style rear window for easier access to the expanded cargo area. Public reaction to the Type K was overwhelmingly positive, and GM executives began seriously considering putting the striking Firebird variant into production. With its standout and unique appearance, the Type K was unlike any other Firebird, though it did share some design cues with other GM models of the 1970s. However, GM soon realized that development cost would kill the project. At the time, a regular Firebird Trans Am sold for just under $6,000, while Pontiac targeted the Type K at $16,000. According to Hemmings, GM believed the actual break-even price would need to be $25,000. And so the Type K was shelved. Still, Pontiac fans will be pleased to know that the surviving prototype remains in seemingly excellent condition to this day.